Hello and welcome to Healing the Healer, the series. As I mentioned in the introduction video, doing a couple of guests that I'll be having conversations with. And first up on the series, we have a lady that is no stranger to telling stories. And she goes by the name of Gugu KamaShandu Sangweni. I met this lady on Facebook a couple of years ago, and she's here to tell us her story and how she engages with the platform. So, Gugu, tell us who Gugu is.
Hi, Khosi.
Hello.
Gugu is an old Innerview weapon. I started writing on Facebook in 2014. I'll say things were going bad for me at the time. I needed something to do, so I decided to let me start writing because I was also reading books on Facebook. So I can also do this. That's when I started.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So if we think of Ugugu, the story writer Sagu Facebook, how is she different from Ugugu Ekai?
Okay. First, at home, I'm a mother. I have two kids. Well, I'm raising two kids, boys, 9 and 8. So you can imagine I have to be strict. I have to lay down the rules, discipline people. But on Facebook, I do try to be serious from time to time. But most of the time, that's I get to escape my own reality, because on Facebook, character I'm working on, sometimes I'm a guy, and I'm in my 50s, and I have to do all these things Josh was doing. So, yeah, it's fun, it's fun. I get to be whoever I need to be at the time. But at home, I remain just that, a mother.
Ah, okay. That is quite interesting. And I suppose because we met on Facebook and you've touched on your role in Facebook, when did you join Facebook and why?
Well, I had no real reason why, Everyone was just talking about Facebook and I needed to know what is Facebook. So I joined in 2009. And then my account was empty, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. And then in 2013, I started making friends, just adding people here and there. And I gave myself some time to learn what it's about. So that's how I ended up finding these stories. Because I remember the first story I came across was Itariga Sintiswa.
Wow.
It was very popular during those days. So yeah, then I realized, Facebook is not just for getting people like you, my Facebook friend now. You get to read. Like I wasn't exposed to books most of the time because I wasn't studying it at the time. So now I get to Facebook, I get to read, see someone else's imagination, see how other people see the world, all those things. Okay. That's how I ended up being on Facebook.
But now, what led you to this diary, Cindy's? What did somebody recommend it, or did you just while reading or browsing, and then you found that there's stories on Facebook?
Well, a former classmate actually shared the page on her timeline. So, and it was maybe like 60 something. It was so far gone, I had to go back and reread the whole thing backward. Yes, so at the time, I would stay up all night just reading because, I was like, wow, I've never came across something like this,
Yes.
A phone that trying to catch up, and then someone else introduced the amateur Yeah, that one was very popular. By the time I found the page, it was over 600 something chapters. So you can imagine having to catch up on it. Yeah, that was the fun part. But
Okay.
you didn't have anyone you into a chapter, into a diary, you just came across this, you find other people reading and they will say, I'm also reading this in my spare time. So you check another one and another one. That's how you end up with so many pages to like.
Yes. Okay. So now you started with reading. At what point did you decide, now I'm going to write my very, very first chapter? What inspired you to write that first chapter?
Well, this is a little bit embarrassing because, when I was reading, I'm a curiosity the writer, she had a life, and at the time I was a reader, I didn't know how writers do this. As readers, we demand, when you can find the next chapter, you get real pissed off. Yeah, so I was in that place. I got really pissed off when she couldn't post like several chapters a day. And then I decided, I can also do this instead of being pissed off at someone else for living their own life, because she wasn't like, we weren't paying her. She was just sharing with us, and we had no right to demand, but we did. We didn't know any better. I didn't know at the time. So that's when I decided, let me write my own, and my very first page was the Imperial Shatwin.
Yes. The one I never got to read.
I didn't get it.
No, I'm saying you were writing Impilo Shatweni, which I never got to read. By the time I found you, you were already writing a story Sagambai.
Oh,
yes.
You missed out on quite a few.
Okay. So before we get to the list of your stories, let's talk about what motivated you to then continue with Impilo Shatweni.
Well, it will be the readers. When I opened the page, because I created the page, started sharing, people to like my page, they didn't really just jump into it.
Yes.
So I wrote the introduction and left the page. A few days later, I go back in missing figure. Oh, I have a like. That one like changes everything. So I wrote like maybe 4 chapters. And it started growing, like I was like, oh, this is so nice. We need to read more of this. We want more. I had to continue. After that, that's what kept me going. And now that I know how to write, I go back and look at it like, wow. People, some would send me corrections on the inbox, some would just ignore. And every time I will forget writing tongue wrong, and there was this lady who sent me an inbox, who had doesn't have a past tense, so it can't be had. So, and I started apologizing. And few people were like, we don't care, English is not our mother tongue, so you just keep going. We get it.
Okay.
So I just having read is motivation, because you can't really be doing it by yourself. It's not easy writing for no feedback.
Yes. Okay. That is incredible. So now you mentioned earlier that you get to a stage, right, on Facebook,
right? Yes.
And at home, you are the strict mother that needs to keep the rules and look after the kids. Which life do you prefer? The online or the real life?
Gosh, I would say, I don't know, it's just the same, you know, because real life is hard, yes, but online it's also hard because online you meet so many people, you come across so many things, and at the end of the day, you're sitting there wounded by things that has nothing to do with you, but you just saw them, you invested your emotions in them. Yes. So in real life, you try to act like you're blind, just go straight. There's always something is keep him in. So I'd say it's not different. It's just the same. But I'll pick real life to be a mother, and I love being a mother.
Okay. So when Gugu sits and decides what story to write, is it all imagination or is it real life?
Well, I like fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes, because in fantasy, you can manipulate things the way you want them to work out for you.
Yes.
So what I do, I'll create my characters based on the fantasy. And then every now and then I have to take a real life situation, put it in, bit by bit. You try to get people to be aware of something maybe they weren't aware of at the time.
Yes.
So as much as they don't exist, but the issues they face, they do exist. And sometimes I do try, to get my emotions involved, based on my characters. But most of the time, I do sit there and think, if this person it was me, what would I do? So yes, I try to balance, fantasy, real life.
Awesome. Now I want you to take us to the beginning. Okay, so we're still talking about creating characters, creating a storyline. So now you say Impilo Yasemshadweni was your first story. That is when Gugu the writer began.
The following story was A Dead Rose.
Okay, the one about Joshua.
Yes.
My favorite people. So what brought that?
Yes, Gugu. Then it was
No. The one about Joshua.
Oh, well, about Joshua. About Joshua, well, I would say I was inspired by this, but the whole idea of Joshua came from Jay-Z shoes. Jay-Z, Beyonce's husband. Yes. So every time I saw a photo of Jay-Z, I would look at his shoes, because you wear this card and they'll be very clean. You're like, even the sole, the skin. Like if a hand by someone laid something with pants. So I was just sitting there thinking, if I have to create a character, a man, it would have to be this strong man. Othi mekhuluma abantu bahlale phansi bamlalele, this guy or an alpha male, I would say, an alpha male, someone who makes things happen, who's not afraid of a challenge, who's not afraid of taking on anyone who goes against him. So that's how Josh was born, So every time I looked at Jay-Z, I was thinking, sorry?
No, I'm surprised that Joshua came from Jay-Z because the picture you're using on Facebook looks nothing like Jay-Z.
Yes, well, I know. And I couldn't exactly make him like Daisy because I've never spent any time with Daisy. So I don't know how Daisy live his life, away from the media. So all I did was to just imagine, Jay-Z must be this kind of person behind closed doors. So that's what I did. And then I did vlogs because when I like men with vlogs. And I always thought it would be better if there's something because if a man has short hair, most men have short hair. So I said, Joshua has to have long hair, and it has to be very neat. For I think, wow, this guy. So yeah, I did that.
Okay. And then the other characters, Abontogozo, what was the other boy's name?
There was Ntogozo, and then there was Njabulo.
Yeah, Njabulo, my favorite.
Njabulo on. And every time when he needed to be introduced to a new person, I would make sure that this person does say he resembles Morris Chestnut, because I had no other imagination of.
Of course, we heard it. We believed Gugu Njabulo looks like Morris. We really did.
Morris Chestnut, the face. And I had no other imagination of him. But well, on a dead rose, wasn't. I would say he was more like in the back, just someone I would include every now and then, but he wasn't out there. So I didn't need to tell people how he looks like, all those things. I would just say Untogozo is there as a dead person, more people. But then I remember when I was writing another dead rose, so there was needed to come in and start yelling at Joshua. Now Joshua has always been the alpha male, so this guy who was the reader said, you gave Ntogozo more authority than Joshua. But now we've been introduced to Joshua for this long, so we thought we had no voice of authority. But now Ntogozo comes in and, he's I'm part of your bullshit and everything. So then I needed to create a visual and Ntogozo for myself.
Yes.
That's when I sat down and thought, okay, it was as tall like a mystery. So Ntogozo would have to look like it was Elba, in real life. It has to be tall, full of mystery, even though I said Joshua as an alpha male, when he walks in, people stop talking and look at him. But Ntogozo needed to be, like, well, how do I explain this? A bad boy who's on his way to being a husband, a father.
Yes.
So he needed to move from everything I did on a rose to Pelisa's husband. And that was hard because people knew Ntogozo was this bad guy who would have multiple sex partners and everything, and he would never have a problem with his wife have sex with another man. But now I needed to move him from all that. So I slowly went out by saving Pelisa, and people started liking him, like they started recognizing him. Yeah, he is strong, he has a voice of authority, he protects. He was no longer that Ntogozo they met before. And luckily at the time, my guys were just reading, they weren't analyzing everything, because if they did, they would have asked me questions I couldn't answer, like, why would Ntogozo suddenly be this good person? Why would he change? And I would need to engage them, explaining how did he go from being that nonsense and everything.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so
wait.
was okay.
one of the biggest things I noticed when I started following you was the number of readers. So when do you think that your life or your page as a writer became explosive, like to get to the numbers of 80,000?
I would say it was because people, most readers, they love these bad boys because there was no magic. It was just Joshua and his shenanigans. So people would like them. They like gangsters, I'll say. Because even now, if you write a story with gangsters, you get like so many followers. People like those people. So what I did was, for me, I would read the comments, find out what people think. After each chapter, take the story from me. If Joshua does something that people hate, I know people will express in the comments and they'll go off at him. So, and then I'll make sure that in line, people would like the character to a point they end up hating the character. The character doesn't do what they want the character to do. So what I did was to make sure that the line, there's a line Joshua doesn't cross.
Yes.
Like the fact that he never cheated on his wife, that's why he doesn't cheat.
Yes.
But he did cheat. But that's not the point now. Because now I make sure that Joshua was rehabilitated. Gosh, I don't know how to pronounce rehabilitate. Yeah, but Joshua, after saying we rehab for his anger issues, he came back a better person. Yes, but he still had the anger and violence and everything. But I made sure through all that anger and violence and everything, his wife, and kids were protected. So people like protectors. They want to be protected. They want to be safe. They want men with money. They want men who don't mind spending money on them. They want men who don't have a problem confronting those who treat them bad. So that's what I did, to make sure the followers grow. You just it's like fishing. You throw it in and then you put it out. That's what I did. So I made sure who Joshua is, this fantasy guy every woman would like. Because most of my readers were women. They were men, and they would enjoy the story just as much. But mostly were women, and most women would say, "I want my own Joshua." So I capitalized on that.
Of course. Okay. So it means that most of your readers related to your characters, or they wanted you to create this men that they can fantasize about and believe that they're real.
Yes, I would say they wanted the men they can fantasize about. But, readers are not one person. They have different needs. I did have readers who confronted me about not growing a character. And they would complain and say, why do I make Utandega this weak woman who control Joshua and everything? And at the time I would be on the crossroads not knowing how to deal with it, because I didn't want the ladies to be like, I don't need a man, I don't need this, because the story wouldn't work if they went there. They needed to be there, and the story needed to be told by women. With that, like I did get hate from readers about that, because they wanted a woman who would be like, I don't need to Joshua, like I'm fine on my own. But I thought it won't make any sense, like, why would I write a story about a woman who doesn't need a man when I want to write a story about this man? So that's how it ended up being a story instead of Sandek.
Yes. So tell me, do you have a theme for your stories? Do you keep a theme that will go across all stories, or do you create a theme per story?
Do is I would have one character and excuse me, and ngimenze life yakhe yenzeke as I go along, you know, like I won't be like stick out to this issue only. There's a show which I involved a lot of things. So I wouldn't say there's a theme, there's no theme. You know? I make it up as I go along. After each chapter, I have to sit there and think, okay, this chapter ended here, so I need to continue here. But in the writing, you can change the story as it moves, you know. You don't have to stick to one thing, which when I have to write a book, you know, a manuscript, in manuscripts, it needs to have a start, you know, the middle, and then the ending. But on Facebook, each chapter would have a start, the middle, and the ending, and then another chapter, so on and so on and so on and so on. So it was a real challenge to stick to writing into one thing that needs to make sense at the end, you know.
So tell me, while you're talking about the end, when you start a story, do you have an end in mind?
Or on Facebook, I don't have the ending. I'll have the start, you know, like I have one character and she'll bring, if it's a girl, she'll bring the rest. If it's a guy, he'll bring the rest. But if with the manuscript, you need to have a story has to, you know, ending, like where you go, I've done this long enough, then I will just say, you know, we are approaching the end and start wrapping everything up and then just end the story. That's how it's different. Sometimes you bring in a character in with different intentions and then you end up liking them more. For an example, I'll say, when I wrote The Mistress, you know, Nikki wasn't supposed to end up where she ended up. She was supposed to, I was supposed to hate her, you know, and then so her life wouldn't work out the way it did. But at the end, I started with her too. So I needed to change the story.
Okay, so we were talking about the stories that you have written, and now with all these people that will read and comment, what value do you think readers have on a story?
Oh, okay, this is a trick one. A female character, you would find that they would expect that character to make decisions based on what they would do, based on how they feel about everything. So when the reader do that, and that's where we get problems, you know. That's where people get angry. That now the reader that they connect to is no longer acting like them. So I think most people, they want the reader to relate to them, you know. As much as they relate to the reader, they also expect as much as they relate to the character, they also expect the character can't do the same thing, you know. We can't see things the same way, we don't feel the same way. So when you start moving away from what they want the character to feel, you know, they feel like there's something wrong. You know, you're no longer delivering what they want you to deliver. You know, that's the problem. Yes, that's the challenge I face with most of my characters.
Yes.
You know, every explain that, remember, it's just a character. Yes, you relate to them, but they are not you. And if you feel that they are not everything in a book is has to be about what you will do. Sometimes you just want to write things you shouldn't do. So you have to sit there and think, okay, she's my favorite, but I wouldn't do this. So you make a different decision in your life, and the character mess up their own lives.
Yes.
So I think that's what people do. They take what they want to take. Sometimes they even take what they shouldn't take.
Yes, yes. So tell me this. Do you think that, you know, the more that your readers are in conflict with your storyline, does it change the way that you write the story?
God, sometimes it does. Yes, sometimes it does. But most of the time, I try not to make it influence. I have to use Nigiwe as an example.
Okay.
You know, Nigiwe, if it was up to my readers, I would have killed Nigiwe, you know, like just remove her from the story or make her life miserable and everything. But because I wanted something else for Nigiwe,
yes.
I took so many abuse from people saying, why is she making Bali suffer? Why is she doing this? Why is she doing that? You know? So I had to try and remain uninfluenced, if I can say something like that.
Yes, yes.
I had to remain just up there and let people be in conflict with themselves about it.
And they stop commenting and liking, right?
Then stop, and then you get comments like, I'm no longer or I don't read Nobani. It's discouraging because now you know you write this, you write for certain people, and everyone else is like, so yeah. I try and but you just have to take what works, leave what doesn't.
Yes. So you were talking about how readers react to your stories. So when you are reading stories by other writers, how do you participate? Do you also comment with nasty stuff or stop reading when the character does not meet your requirements?
Okay, me as a reader, I would say I'm not very different from all readers. If a character that I like is no longer doing what I want them to do, I do get pissed off and also remember that the writer that I send it in both, you know, as a writer and as a reader. So I have to remember that the writer can't always please me, you know. It's not about me, it's about the character. So while I'm pissed off, I continue reading, and yeah, when they need healing too. So and I don't stop reading. I always tell myself not to stop reading unless the story, you know, we get so many stories.
Yes.
Some stories you relate to, some stories you don't relate to, some stories, you know, touch on things you don't want to think about, things you maybe, you know, things like you don't want to experience, and you don't even want to imagine. But so when I get those stories, maybe I read a chapter or two and realize it's not for me.
Okay.
What I do is that I stop reading that story. You know? And when the author is done with that story, I read something else. What I make sure not to do is to tell the author that, you know, the story is just not for me. I feel like you shouldn't say that as a reader. You shouldn't say things like that. You should let the person continue writing their story the way they want their story to.
Okay. You are a great reader.
If you feel that the story is no longer for you, you move on into something else. So that's what I do. I do read a lot. I'm going to use an example regarding Funda, beyond the temple, something by daily page.
Yes.
And I had to exit group, because in a group, people will post it and start shredding other characters, and,
Yes.
and you hide by to get feelings. So at the end, I was like, okay, Gugu, for your own peace, just ignore the group and don't read comments, don't comment on anyone's comment. So when I get to the page, I just read the chapter till the end, put down my phone and think about what I've just read and not talk about it with other people. Because with other people, and I like it because you don't see things the way I see them. And you can't really tell me, yeah, how much you say this. So yes, that's what I do. Okay. I'm not different. I'm the same.
Yeah, no, we all go through that. We go through the most. Do you like building relationships with other writers, and why?
Tell you the truth, I like building relationships with other writers, and I would enjoy. My problem is that I'm not that outspoken. In life, I'm just not outspoken. I'm very shy. When I meet people and they have to talk to me and I have to talk to them, I always end up not knowing what to say. I remember when I met Opunza, the lady who wrote the Unspoken Truth. She was just so happy. And I was just sitting there thinking, why can't I talk to her? Because she's there and she's talking to me. And Nina, I'm shocked. I don't know how to socialize with people. I don't know how to start a conversation. So that's my problem. As much as I love it, I love it. I love it because I do talk to Lucy.
Yes.
Now, I met her first place, but he is not the same as iPhone. It's easy, you just type what you're saying and she replies. It's very easy. But when you meet them in real life, it's different, you have to speak and you're just sitting there like, what do I say now? So I don't sound foolish. It's very tricky for me. I always blame it on introvert. I think I'm an introvert.
Okay.
Because when it has to happen, I just don't know where to begin.
And
I would love to. In fact, I think if I can be exposed to more events where I'm forced to speak, maybe I can get used to it and start building more relationships. I think that's what will happen. But for now, I suck at this. So if I meet a person and I have to talk to them and they realize Gugu is not the same Gugu we get on Facebook. She's not the same Gugu who's writing stories. So you meet this Gugu and she's very boring and not interesting at all. That's the problem.
Yes. So do you make friends with your readers? Like, have you had any friendships from the people that started reading and then next thing you have budding friendships?
Yes, I've met a few. And as I was explaining that, when we meet in real life, you don't get that Google or you've met Facebook, you get a different Google. So yes, I've met them and it was nice, but I don't think I gave them anything to come back for, like I wasn't interesting enough for them to stick around. But there are those that we've built more than just a reader and a writer friendship, who have remained my friends, like my real, like true friends. So in a sense of being friends, we end up talking about more than just books. Yes, I did get that.
Yes.
And what I always do is, as much as I will never meet all of my readers, but I know I always want them to know what I appreciate everything they do for me. I appreciate them reading my stories. Yes, I'm writing them. I write stories for people to read, but the fact that they take time off from their own lives to read my stories, it means a lot. But they, I, I do. I get it.
Okay.
I remember this one time I was at DUT, and these ladies. So I'm walking past with some of the ladies I was in class with, and two girls are just looking at me. I look back. One of them gets up and be like, "Oh God, what did I do to this person? Maybe I said something offending on Facebook, and now they want to confront me in real life." So I'm sitting there like, yeah, I could be. Why? And this lady, she's like, "Oh, we love about the book," and I'm thinking I should be excited with them, I should be saying things to show interest, but I'm just sitting there like, "Oh, I'm glad you like the book," and that was it. And the issue about that is that you don't get a second chance, to make the first impression. It's just there, and it. So to them, they might think, "Oh, Gugu is a stuck-up person who when you talk to her," but I it's just the way I am. I think I just started making friends.
Okay, you're talking about meeting people, being an introvert, and how you relate to the people, but in terms of you writing, having other writers and readers that you now form relationships with, how has writing changed your life?
Okay, I'll start with this. It's pure joy when you read the comment and then you come across a comment by Busisi where Kumal. Sorry, I always pronounce it wrong, but yes, Ubus, I have a wife. You're like, "Oh my God, this is here." And then you scroll down and then you see Nelly and you're like, "Oh God, they're all here. Wow." But at the same time, you don't want to come off as a groupie of some sort. So you try to, it's all cool, but you're super excited. It's exciting to have other writers reading your stories. Yes, because I remember when I was writing, I don't remember which story I was writing, but it was years back. There was a problem where I was accused of being jealous of this writer. It just got really, really bad. I got messages from people telling me that so it's not easy. When you see another writer on your page, it's not very easy. You don't know how they receive you. Because for me, I was just excited, but I didn't know it's more than that for others. Next thing I know, people are calling me jealous about someone else. It got really, really, really bad.
Ouch.
I ended up not reading more. I stopped reading some of her stories. I stopped commenting, trying to stay away from all the issues. Because at the end of the day, people this and this, and they say, "Who did this?" And it sticks. So the bad sticks faster than good.
I think most of the time people online are just rude because they can hide behind the screen.
Yes, and if you say anything about it, they will call you out on it and act like they've never been rude to you. For me, went for my nose, she was like, "Yeah," and she wrote it in Khosi. Can't say something like that. So I knew it was an insult about my nose, but I didn't know what the insult was because I didn't understand the language. So when you get angry about those,
Yeah.
you don't take things lying down.
Yes, yes.
So it's complicated, you know. If you're nice, they take advantage. If you are no longer nice, then they call you a rude cow. That's how it is.
Oh my God. Okay, so never mind the insults and the criticism and the people that think you're a cow. When you write your stories, do you intend to give your readers life lessons?
That is always an intention. But beyond that, I write just because I want to, you know. In some parts, like the whole story won't be about me delivering some lesson about something, you know. The
Yes.
whole story will be about me just creating these people, and then I'll just take a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of this, you know, trying to highlight things. Because I remember I tried to highlight depression, way, and I tried to highlight the issue that you deal with after giving birth.
Yes, yes.
And I tried to highlight him multiple personality disorder. With that story, I never got to finish. I hope people forgive me for it. But yes, I did try. You know, with everything, I always try to bring up something. You know, to pass a certain lesson. Like the story I'm doing now, because I'm writing PDF. I've written a PDF.
Yes, yes.
I try to pass, you know, pain, the story. I don't want to freak people out, but it's about pain. You know, when you're in pain and you feel like the world is just against you, but it's not. It's not against you. There's survival. So those are the lessons I always try to pass on, like with the book. At times, I'm down at the bottom. You know, I'll never be able to rise, and you think you're weak, you think you can't go on anymore, you know, all those things. But people looking at you from the outside and like, she's the strongest person I've met, you know, she survived this.
Yes.
We are not, as much as people don't always see what we see.
So you were telling us about your readers and the fact that some of the lessons relate to their pain. Does any of your reading refer to your own pain?
My own pain, say much. I'll say not much. The reason being is that for me, when I want to escape my own life. So if I take my own story, that means I'm not my life, you know. That's why I don't. I always make sure I don't. But there are issues that I always want to highlight, maybe something that I heard or something that I'm going through. So with those, I just bring a little bit of it and not focus much, because I don't like thinking about things that I've gone through.
Okay.
Or how bad how about Joshua, this character I've created. So I don't, I'm in my writing. I use things that isn't a pantry. That's why I rely so much on Google, because I know everything. So that's Google does. So I just Google everything that I don't know and try to understand, you know. Because I remember when I was writing Get Rose, you know, people would say, how do you know about all these sex position Joshua is always on about, like, is your success like this? And I'll be like, no, I just go on Google. I go to Google and read about it and then come back and write it down. I have to use my own experience. Wait. So yes, I. Yeah, so Google comes very handy. It helps a lot. You know. Yes.
Yeah, no, true.
I use for most of this. It's sex, everything, even some emotions. There are some emotions that you just don't know how to put them down. So you have to go to Google and ask Google, okay, if I feel like this, what is it? And then Google will give you all these solutions to make you able to, okay, I'm going to take this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's quite interesting. Okay, so you spoke about the book that you're working on. We've spoken about you writing on Facebook. Where else are you giving away your work, or selling it, or marketing it?
Well, at this point, none, because I haven't written much on Facebook. I only wrote. What was the last story? I wrote.
Let me tell you what your last story was. You wrote one chapter and got us hooked. Was it Solani?
Yes, I wrote Invisible Strings. I wrote one chapter, and then I sort of just stopped and asked for an extended break. The reason being is that with that story, every time I needed to write it, I would just stare at my phone and be like, okay, what's next? You know, it wasn't like my previous stories. With my previous stories, every time I ended a chapter, I would have the next chapter in my head already. And then I have to put it down, you know, the next chapter. But with my recent stories, I need to think about it. And then, being Alan 17.
Oh, yes.
Because I'm actually internship. So balance being at work and writing. Most of the time, you know, just balancing my life, you know, so I knew at a certain time to sit down and write. But now I need to be at work at 8 until 4:30. So between that time, if I am thinking about it after, I can't pause everything and say, let me write this down, you know. So that was the issue. But with the PDF that I'm writing now, I've been trying to share as much as I can with people, so they know that the PDF is there and it costs 50 rand. The reason why, you know, okay, I have to say this. You know, when I began writing, writing for us on Facebook was just us writing stories, you know. We were just writing stories. But now I realized that writing stories on Facebook is no longer just you writing. People are making money, you know, people are building brands, you know, they're doing all these nice things we didn't think about. And you're just sitting there thinking, yeah, I should have used that chance, but now I can't go back. So yes, with my PDF, it's not selling like I thought it would, but I am disappointed a little bit. But at the same time, I do understand that I haven't written anything in a long time, so I can't expect people to be remembering me when I haven't been there to remind them. You know, so I to write. I'll keep on writing. I won't stop writing. and see what I can do with taking it forward. But yes, I have to go back to writing on Facebook. Yes, I have to go back to writing on Facebook. Writing on Facebook was not just for me to pass time, it was for me to do what I enjoy doing. Because I do the same as writing for yourself. Because when you write for yourself, you just write and you put it there. Even if you reread it, it's not the same. But if you give it to someone else and they read and they tell you what they think, that's the joy. So I'm going to write on Facebook. I'll continue writing on Facebook, and I am going to continue writing these PDFs.
Yes.
Because as much as I like saying this, but we do write, and we've been writing for free for a very long time. Only to find that there are people who are also making money using our writings without asking us. So there are chance to make money before they get their hands on your writing. You have to make as much money as you can. That way, when you see your book in some website, you're like, oh God, it's my book. At least you know you got 100 friends for it. Because for me, I was very disappointed when I came across a story that I have written on Wattpad. Because I did write on Wattpad few years back, and it was on that website. And I was like, so they went to get my story and posted it on their website, you know. So yeah, those are things we face on daily basis. It's part of life, I guess.
Hey, you walk on a journey and you learn new things about yourself and about writing and about readers and even about Facebook itself.
So you learn as you go along. You learn like so many things. For me, whenever I think about it, I think about the fact that I did have this big platform to do so much, and I didn't because I had no idea you can actually do those things. You know, things that people are doing now. And yes, and as much as I do think it's too late, but then I remember it's never too late for anything. So you just have to, you know, you learn before you pick yourself up and continue and continue. And that's how it's done. You don't give up.
What's next for Gugu? What should they expect?
Okay, for my readers, gosh, now I'm afraid I won't be able to stop talking about this once I start. But I've worked on Yes, I've worked on my very first manuscript, and there was an amazing lady who took her time to teach me all these things. I remember every time she sent me a text on WhatsApp, I'd be like, oh God, what does Khosi want me to change now? And then I'll spend the rest of the day wondering if yet is obedient because Khosi wants things to be done to perfection. So yes. So what's next for me now is for the book to be published. I'm not sure about the date yet. I know I've been telling people to be patient, and I'll continue to ask them to be patient with me. It's going to come out. I'm working on it. But before then, I have a PDF copy that I'm selling right now. It's titled A Promise. It's about, I'm just going to give you a brief review. It's about a 15-year-old girl. She's searching for her mother. And when she finds her mother, let's just say things don't work out the way she thought they would, you know. There are challenges here and there. I'm going to give the story away because it's very simple. It's a very straightforward story. In fact, I was thinking about it this morning. It's the first time I've written a story that doesn't have so many things, like complicated things that need you to just sit there and be like, oh my God, this is it. It's just a simple story, this young girl and this man, they're both trying to leave, they're trying to move on from their pain. It's just a simple story of that. So yeah, people will have to buy the PDF to read, and the PDF costs like 50 rand. So yes, it's really that easy. And then the book is titled "What Me Back to Life." The book, wow, this book. Yes, sometimes I do read it. I just read and think, okay, I did this here, I did that there. The time I'm sitting there thinking about my next story, I'll be like, okay, there's Joshua.
Oh my gosh. I think that's your theme. When you are writing, you are just thinking about Joshua.
Woo. Again, come on, not Joshua. This is Joshua. Yes, What Me Back to Life. The reason why I keep going back to read it for myself, I like it. When you write something that you had no idea it would come out like this, that's why you say, oh, Khosi, this nice lady every time she called and said we need to have a meeting, I'll be worried because I didn't know what I was giving her until she gave it back to me, and then I had to read the whole story myself. Okay, this is what I did. So every time and then I started reading again and read and read. Oh wow! So I did this here, and I wasn't even aware I did, and I like it. So, in other words, I would say I'm my biggest fan because this story came out great.
And get frustrated.
Because I'm wondering how is this going to be received by people? So I'm scared. There's always fear.
Yes.
When it came back to me, it was this complete story. So yes, I'm very proud.
Yeah. Totally get you. Yeah, it's a hard journey, this writing thing. It's really hard, and I want to speak to more writers. I want to talk to people that shared the space of writing on Facebook with you. We've lost Gugu again.
I was saying that you should continue writing what you want to write. The example in getting seventies on this issue is the fact that the lady who wrote Harry Potter.
Yes.
She imagined flying cars. And Harry Potter is one of the biggest books ever, even more. So you can imagine if someone is sitting there telling you can't write just because they don't like your storyline, and then you stop. But you could be the next lady who produced something wonderful for us. Just write your imagination, Those who want to read, they will read. Those who don't like it, they won't like.
Yes, I agree, totally. We need to keep motivation. We need to keep getting inspiration and be brave to put that first word.
Yes, that's all it needs, bravery.
Yes, I agree. And you never know who you're healing with your writing. So sometimes we take it for granted that it's just words.
Yes, and then you come across someone who also tell you, thank God for your story. I was able to get out of this dark place I was in, and you had no idea you were just writing,
Yeah.
I got a lot of those when I wrote in fact, I wanted to remain anonymous for as long as I could. But at the end, I needed to tell the truth because people were sending me messages saying, you are so strong, you are able to stand this and this in your marriage. And at the time, I was just a 24-year-old single woman. So I had to come in and say, Now a 40-year-old man is asking you for a marriage advice and you're sitting there like, but I've never been married, so I wouldn't know about these things. That's how you, that's why nothing you couldn't say, hey, it's not me. I make it up as I go along. In some way, we are healing some people, in some way, we are just entertaining.
Yes. But now that's the part where you realize how online stuff can influence real life. I think we've spoken a lot. We experienced a lot of technical issues.
Thank you, Susie. It was fun for me too. I really enjoyed it. Well, besides all this disconnecting, but it was great.
Awesome.
I hope you can do it someday.
Okay, we'll do this again when Water Me Back to Life is out. Then we can talk about this. That was Gugu KamaShandu Sangweni. She is a writer and she has written Facebook stories for as long as I've been on Facebook. And she is currently producing PDFs. That's when you write a story on Word, convert it into a PDF, and then currently a lot of the Facebook writers are selling their PDFs online, raising money. And it's also an easier way of going the traditional route of actually writing a manuscript, getting it edited, working on the actual packaging of the book until you get to the point of distribution. So when they're lacking the funds to actually do their publishing, that's when they bring in the PDFs as a source of income, either for their livelihood or in order to source funds for the publishing. So hopefully we have shared information today about the world of Facebook stories, the community that exists out there, but more importantly, that you get to know the story behind the people that create these fantasies that we get lost in. Tune in next week as we speak to yet another Facebook writer. So Gugu mentioned that there are old school writers and now the new age writers are out there and we don't know what their focus is. We don't know if they do it just because they're inspired by the old ones or if they do it because also like me, there's voices in their head saying there's a message to send out there. But we'll find out from one of the newer writers. Her name is Nomcebo Kanyile Sitebe. She'll be joining me next week. I hope that you enjoyed watching. Please do comment, like, share, and most importantly, please subscribe so you will get notification when the next video comes up. I cannot thank you enough for sitting through this very first conversation in the series. Until next time, love and light.